All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Silvia Zenteno, and I am here with It's On Us. Before we get started, I did want to just say a huge thank you to my colleagues at NRAPE on campus and on my It's On Us team for all of the work that you've been doing on the back end of this and that you're currently doing for this session. I really appreciate all of you. Okay, so as we begin our conversation on supporting survivors, I wanted to begin by saying that I hope that you're all taking care of yourselves and each other as best you can. I did want to make sure to take a minute and share this. So I shared this earlier as well if anyone was able to join our noon session. But this is a reminder that although we are moving all of our work and actions to digital, that doesn't mean that we should expect things to be business as usual. The poll on the screen is actually from our first session yesterday with Active Minds, which was recorded as well. And I wanted to show this because it really stayed with me. And I woke up this morning thinking about it. So as you can see, no one clicked that they are feeling a 9 or a 10 in terms of mental health. And so if you are not feeling amazing, just know that you are not alone. I thought it was really important to share that. Alrighty, so now we can get started. I will be here live and in the chat, and we will be sharing a pre-recorded Train the Trainer session, but I will be here live, and we thought we would do it that way because it'll be easier for you to interact with me and for me to send you links and answers to any of the questions. At the end of the session, I will be back live and can answer any additional questions for you then, and we can conclude. And if you have not registered for other webinars we have for the series, please make sure to go on the website. The link is bit.ly, so bit.ly/ in all caps, Summit Series 20. Alrighty, without further ado, let's get to it. Welcome to our Survivor Support 101 workshop webinar. The webinar is being recorded today and will be made available afterwards, as well as answers to any of the questions that we don't get to. As Alvin mentioned earlier, please direct any questions you have to the chat area of the webinar. If we don't get to them, we'll try to get to them at the end or in the recap email as well. Feel free to email us if you don't see your question answered in any of those places. You can find us at contact@itsonus.org. So just a quick note to those of you listening by phone without visual as well. We'll be sharing our screen. So if you need, feel free to check out the webinar recording later as well to fill in some of those blanks. So first, I'll take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Silvia Zenteno. As I said, this is me in the red dress right there. I'm the Director of Educational Programs and Training here at It's On Us. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And before coming to It's On Us, I was at the Justice Department's Office on Violence Against Women. I then worked under the Violence Against Women pillar at the Biden Foundation. And my background is really in campus and youth sexual violence prevention and response programming. So I'm really excited to be here to talk with you about this today. All right, on today's webinar, we'll be discussing our Survivor Support 101 pillar. We'll go over exactly what the pillar is in a few minutes, and our goal is to provide you with tools, background, and information to host these trainings on your campus. Like we've said, our goal is to have a record amount of these trainings taught by students and anyone else around the country. So we'll be going over some background information first and materials, and then we'll dive right into the workshop from there. So a quick overview of the initiative. It's on Us began in 2014 in the Obama-Biden White House as a recommendation from the White House Task Force to protect students from sexual assault. Student activists on campuses around the country had activated to demand a change, and the campaign grew out of the need for that change. To date, almost 500,000 people have taken the It's on Us pledge, which says that we all have a responsibility to be a part of a violence-free culture on campus. And students have held more than 6,000 events. So once students started to establish their chapters as part of this campaign, taking the pledge, they really wanted to know what's next, how else can they be involved, what can they do to do more. So we've transformed from a campaign into what is now more of a program. So this academic year, the 2019 to 2020 year, is our first year where we are using educational programming and rolling this out. We received feedback that students felt that most programming available was either too expensive, the language was not student friendly, or the content was too broad and not adaptable for different communities. So we decided to develop our own materials based on student feedback. So that really became our goal. And for those of you who watched the show Insecure, the diagram on the bottom right is the We Got Y'all logo from Issa's work. We function not at all like the We Got Y'all organization. We function more like the diagram on the left in a very decentralized way. Our goal is to train student leaders that can then lead and are also well prepared to lead this movement. Okay, so our process. We spent the first quarter of 2019 listening to students, holding focus groups and interviews, and then developed material, piloted it, and refined it based on that feedback. So each educational tool was developed based on that direct feedback and the needs addressed by students. And all of our resources draw from the most up-to-date research and best practices, which we cite within each of them as well. On the bottom of your screen here, you can see the 3 pillars that we use in blue. Best practices tell us that you can achieve the most culture change on a campus if you have programming that covers community engagement. So which outside groups is your campus working with on this issue, ways that anyone can intervene or bystander education, and programming specifically on what your options are at your school. So our 3 pillars aim to address all 3 of those areas. So this slide shows gaps that are identified in programming on a national level. And we always note that there's no national program that will be perfect, because the most effective way to get an audience to retain information and use it is by centering the material to that audience. So we encourage you to incorporate examples that are most relevant to you, to your community, to your audience, and substitute that in for examples that maybe we have. All right, so before we begin, we wanted to share with you a facilitator guide. We developed this and it's available on our website. So if you need to prepare for the training, this is something that you can use. So we can, I think we're able to show you the guide. Here's the guide. Again, it is available online. These are just some things to consider before giving each workshop. The more prepared you are, the less likely you are to forget any important pieces. We have this so you can print it out, you can check off each part if you'd like, so that will be available to you as well. And The other important piece that we want, that you might want to incorporate into your workshop is our educational videos. In addition to our written educational resources, we wanted to provide other forms of messaging as an option for workshops and trainings. So we worked with Fancy NYC to film real students telling real stories for each of our focus areas. And it was a really difficult but rewarding and amazing project. We are eternally thankful to the 3 students who were a part of this project and were sharing their stories. And we wanted to share this video with you.
Dear sorority sister who needed a listening ear, your roommate called me and asked me to come to your dorm room. She told me of how you had stripped your bed of the bedding and thrown it in the dumpster, how you refused to sit up from the bare mattress and to speak to anyone. You laid there, curled up and crying. You needed someone who understood what you had gone through, someone who had been there before, someone who believed you. You needed someone to remind you that it wasn't your fault. Suddenly, reality truly set in. My sister had been sexually assaulted the night before, and she needed my support. He was a new boyfriend of yours, but he was different that night. You described to me what happened, the lack of consent, the intense and forceful nature that made you uncomfortable and scared, the feeling of needing to throw away your sheets, your bedding, the gifts and love notes he had given you. All that was left were the words you feared to leave your lips. Sexual assault. And then you looked at me and asked, how did you move on? How did you get out of bed each day? What is life like after this? I looked at you and I said what I wish someone had told me. First of all, I'm sorry this happened to you. No one should ever experience this. Second, I believe you, and I know you are telling me everything you can tell me right now. I promise to continue to listen if you continue to tell. Lastly, I love you. And you are strong. You will get through this. You have proven such strength to me, to our sisters, and most importantly to yourself. I am grateful for your trust in me then, now, and in whatever capacity you may want in the future. I owe you support because I never want another sister to go through this ever again. Sincerely, Carly. It's on us to end sexual assault. Learn how to support a survivor at itsonus.org.
All right, well, so that was our video called IOU Support. This video pairs with our survivor support workshop. So you can play it before the workshop as an intro. You could also use some discussion questions that we have, and we, I think, are able to show you actually the discussion questions. There they are. So that's what the discussion questions look like. These will be available to everyone for free online. So feel free to use this if you wanted to have either a conversation using just the video and the discussion questions, or do this before the training, really whatever works for you. But each video that we have pairs with discussion questions, and all of those are available to you. All right, great. So this slide begins the PowerPoint slideshow that we are going to be providing online for you to use in your training. Feel free to choose, again, the most relevant pieces in your presentation, especially if you don't have a full hour of time for the training. Usually these trainings range from 45 minutes to an hour with all of the activities. The slideshow for the training will be posted with the presenter comments. They are meant to offer ideas for presenting each of the slides and include some additional information for group activities and discussion topics. For this Train the Trainer session, we're not going to be doing the group activities, but I'll share some thoughts on ways to get attendees to engage with you. So, of course, the first slide is the table of contents. This is a list of topics that we'll be covering in the session. Note that there's a slide at the end of this presentation the presentation that you will get for this training that is for questions. So we recommend asking everyone to write their questions down and ask them at the end. That way you can also navigate time a little bit easier. For this specific Train the Trainer webinar today, we have our amazing Elvin Bruno Jr. on the chat box. So feel free to ask questions in the chat as often as you want and throughout the whole webinar. And then again, we'll answer some of them at the end as well. Alrighty, so introductions. This is a great way to, oh, there we go. This is a great opportunity for you to introduce yourself, similar to the way I did at the beginning of this. You can add a photo of yourself, and anyone presenting with you. It is also an opportunity to go around the room. If you have a smaller group, you can start getting people to talk to each other. Usually I just ask for name, pronoun, and you can throw in like a fun fact, favorite ice cream flavor, really whatever works for you. So the first thing on our agenda is to address what survivor support is and why we are here talking about it today. So just as background on this area, 90% of survivors do not report their assault. History has shown that this is true. According to RAINN, 995 out of 1,000 perpetrators of sexual assault will walk free. The main reason that survivors do not report is that they fear that they will not be believed and that various authorities, especially legal and medical authorities, might be biased. And not responding to crimes that are reported in a way that is helpful and safe for the victim can lead to increased violence on our campus. It is extremely important to note that survivors of color, disabled survivors, undocumented survivors, and many other marginalized groups face even more obstacles to reporting and seeking services for their assault. This, again, very important to note as we develop our programming to ensure that we are never leaving anybody behind in this conversation. Alrighty, so survivor support is a specific response provided to survivors by their community. So this includes peers, the administration, and anyone in your community. This slide, it can either be a quick activity for the group or you can just read through the bullets out loud. If you have the time, you can say, let's go around the room. What does it mean to be survivor-centered? For now, I can just read a few of these. So survivor-centered services should be accessible to all survivors. They should recognize that each survivor is unique and has unique needs, and should be culturally relevant for the survivor. So in order to prioritize survivors with all the services that we listed, you will need a team. This is your CCRT, or Coordinated Community Response Team. This is a group of groups, organizations, or people on your campus or around your campus that need to be a part of your response to victims in your community. According to national best practices, a successful CCRT will make the following possible. They will have campus climate surveys, assess the school's climate in regard to sexual violence through the use of campus climate surveys. They will foster coalitions and networks, provide trauma-informed services and support survivors. They'll develop fair and effective policies and protocols, hold perpetrators accountable under these policies and protocols. promote campus and community education and collaboration, change organizational practices, and measure the effectiveness of the school's efforts. All right, so who should this group be made up of? They can be an individual, it could be a private business, it could be a public organization, a direct service provider, for example, rape crisis center and counseling center, et cetera. And anyone who can help you provide a service for students. So we recommend that you start with your Title IX or Victim Services office on campus and begin finding the partners that we're showing below now, actually. The offices that house these individuals or groups can vary. So work with your Title IX coordinator to locate the right point of contact. So in your workshops, you can go around the room after posting the example partners, and you can either click through them. You'll have the option to click through them one by one, or you can just show them all. That's always an option. All right, so the following processes are the student conduct processes that most schools are using right now, and it's important to just go through those with each of your class or with your audience. So we start with the single investigator model. The definitions for these are in the notes for each of the slides. In this model, the Title IX investigator interviews the defendant or complainant, as well as all of the witnesses with relevant information. The same person collects the evidence, and this process concludes with again, that person writing an investigation report summarizing everything. No hearing ensues, and the designated investigator comes to a finding and recommends a sanction or sanctions. The investigator literally serves as the police, the judge, and the jury. So the efficacy varies since it's just one person in this process, but that is the single investigator model. Some schools have a hearing board model. This model is when the school appoints a group of people. Often this group is affiliated with the school in some way, and they judge the case. So schools will often use a hybrid model, which combines this model and the single investigator model somewhere in the process to avoid just one person making all the decisions in the case. And we wanted to make sure to also highlight restorative justice. This model is a growing practice in both the criminal and social justice fields, and it seeks to repair and address the harm experienced by victims, as well as any harm done to their community. So in a restorative justice approach, the victim and the offender, and in some cases other people affected by the misconduct, participate in active and honest discussions about how someone was harmed and what it will take for them and the community to heal. They also discuss steps that the offender and others can take to ensure that it doesn't happen again. For more information on this model, you can find a one-pager that we have online through our resources and tools tab. So recommend checking that out. All right, so now that we've talked about why this focus area is so important to our programming, we can discuss ways to ensure that survivors are supported. So how one reacts to someone that discloses to them is important because people do not report very often, as we know, and that first interaction can decide if they are going to tell their story again. So here are some tips on helpful ways to respond if you need to support a friend. So these are some recommendations on a way to respond to disclosure. Again, these are just recommendations for when you are in a situation when someone discloses to you. This is not to say that you are in any way responsible for responding to survivors. That's the role of trained advocates. But these are some things that you can say to a friend or a peer if they open up to you. You can say, I believe you. You can ask them what they need. Listen so that you can understand where to direct them. But you don't need to feel obligated to listen to the details if you are uncomfortable or you feel triggered. Ask them if they need immediate medical attention and if they would like you to call the police or your local rape crisis center. If they're not in immediate danger, there are options that they can choose from to get medical assistance. You can call, again, your local rape crisis center, your health services office. You can go to the local hospital, local or campus police. You can talk to an advocate or a staff member in the Title IX office for guidance, and figure out where to go from there. It's important to say that you are not alone. There are other survivors in this community as well. I support you, I support your decision, or I want to be as helpful as possible. And to me, that means directing you to a professional resource and service. So, and of course, say, thank you for trusting me with this information. It's also helpful to try not to ask a lot of questions, especially why questions. For example, it is helpful not to say, well, why didn't you tell them to stop? What were you wearing? How much were you drinking, etc. So if you wanted to turn this into a group activity, you could go around the room and ask this question. How would you respond? And again, this is up to you, maybe based on the amount of time that you have, but this can be, it's an easy activity that you could do. All right, so for this slide, you can start by asking the class, does anyone know what a mandated or mandatory reporter is? The answer is that a mandated reporter is an institutional policy or state statute that requires all or nearly all employees to report harassment and assault to campus authorities, local law enforcement, or to your Title IX officials. This varies by schools. These definitions, again, will be in the presenter notes for you as well. This is really important to go over. But an example of something that you can say when a survivor is disclosing to you, if you are a mandated reporter, is something like, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I do want to let you know that I am a mandated reporter on campus before you share with me. If you're no longer comfortable talking with me, I can connect you with a confidential resource, such as our survivor advocates and health services. So again, just an example of something you could say. So next on the agenda is talking about self-care, which is really important. It's important to talk about self-care because you will be better equipped to support others if you are taking care of yourself. Vicarious trauma is very real, and sometimes you just need to take some time for yourself. So what exactly is self-care? It is something that you do for yourself, and it can look very different for each of us. So here are some examples of some of the ways that two of our former regional advisors take care of themselves. I think that this is really important to read through. So when you have this training, please feel free to go through this. You can also call on someone from your class to read each one. Today, we are not going to read these out loud because I have added my own self-care to the slide. And I thought it would be fun to bring up with you what I do for self-care. As told by the great Colin, my dog. So of course, everyone these days is suddenly a runner, including me and Colin. So we've been using runs as an excuse to get outside. This was a run that we went on a couple of days ago. It was before the CDC told us that we all have to wear face masks. So I was not wearing one, but we were able to go by the river and sit there for a minute. Very secluded, quite nice. All right, when we first got our work from home orders, I had a really hard time waking up and was forgetting to eat lunch. So I tried my best to change into at least a new pair of pajamas or athleisure and go sit on a wheelchair rather than stay in my bed. So trying to create a schedule. And this is just a funny video of us trying to do yoga at home. I wasn't much of a yogi before, but I've been finding it helpful to be a part of a mindful exercise, some of which I found are even done live, which is very cool, and take some time to myself for reflection, even if just a few minutes at the end of a yoga session. So this has been really nice. And last but not least, napping. I am trying not to be too hard on myself for feeling exhausted, even when I know that I am not being as productive as I was before all of this. So I remember that this is not normal. It is okay to feel not okay sometimes. And I can't say it enough, but your response, whatever it is to this, is very valid. So here are some tips to help anyone attending your training develop their own self-care routine. They will be helpful for this next activity. Oh, it looks like you're okay on time. So I can go through some of these. So think about what you enjoy doing. This could be anything from a walk around the block during lunch, a weekend trip somewhere. Again, this is, not right now, but normally. And self-care looks different for each of us. So if what you need is some time to just clean your room and schedule your next dentist appointment, that's okay too. Schedule a time to do it each day or week or however often you feel that it's needed, and think of ways to incorporate relaxing activities into your day-to-day schedule. So this could be anything from closing your laptop while you eat your lunch, or leaving your phone in your bag while you go to school or to work. Spend time with people in your life that make you feel truly happy. So surround yourself with people that are fun and supportive. And it's okay to say no. If you feel like your body or your mind will not benefit from doing something, take a break, rest, do something that you really enjoy and will feel relaxing. And take care of your body. If you're feeling tired, try to get to bed maybe even just a few minutes earlier each day. And think about why you are doing the self-care activity. Remind yourself why you are taking time out of your day to do something that is not for work. So this is the activity. You can ask everyone to grab a pen or take about 5 minutes to begin writing their own list and to start scheduling their first self-care activity. Even if they don't finish writing this list, at least they've started it and they have something to build on. That is the main goal. And with that activity, that wraps up the training that you will have. All right, well, thanks so much. That was the end of the pre-recorded piece. we wanted to come back on live to see if anyone has other questions. I've gotten a couple of questions sent privately, but if you have any, feel free to send them publicly into the everyone chat. If I have answered everyone's questions already, then that's also okay, but I will be here. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. Oh, thank you for the work that you do, Marley. Rebecca asked, will the slides be available? So yes, the slides, if you want to host your own training session, please do it safely, probably virtually. You can access the slides to this training. So not this recording just yet, but the actual slides to the Train the Trainer are on our website at it'sonus.org in the resources tab. And we have a question about restorative justice. Regarding the restorative justice approach, how do you go about that trauma informed? I know it can be traumatizing as a survivor to have to speak to your offender. So how is that approach more trauma informed? That's a really great question, so I appreciate you asking that. We actually are having a really amazing presenter from Curry College who has done a lot of restorative justice research and in practice as well, join the summit series. So I believe we have officially added that today, but if not, check back tomorrow and register for that session. A lot of people have thought that restorative justice is the same as mediation, and it's really not. Unfortunately, the 2011 Dear Colleague letter did make that mistake, but restorative justice refers to alternative or restorative approaches where you work on addressing the actual harm that has been caused, and both parties need to consent to what they need. And if having a session where you talk to each other is not what you need, then that is not a part of the restorative process. So I will emphasize that it can be extremely different for everyone because it is based on the ways that you experienced harm and how you would like to heal from that harm. Let's see, Brittany asked, would you recommend including the VAR technique within how to support survivors? Yes, Brittany, did you join our session yesterday with Active Minds? They were really amazing. I would highly recommend that. As they were presenting, I was watching it and was in awe. So I think it's a great video that they shared. It's a great approach. So we definitely recommend going with them. We've done some projects with them. That was not one of them, but we definitely support it. Yeah, of course. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, if we don't, that's totally fine. If anyone thinks of anything, again, please feel free to reach out to me at sylvia@civicnation.org. My name is spelled S-I-L-V-I-A. And again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all of you, all of the work that you're doing, and we'll see you soon.